I see Zach's me. I see Rebecca. Hi, Cindy. Arthur.
Rabbi.
Susie. I see half of Reese's family. Oh, there's the rest of it. Barbara. Effie. Effie. Ah, yes. Steve. Ray, good to see you. Okay, you're still in Marvin's iPad.
Doris is here.
I see Doris.
I've got a brand new computer that we bought the other day, a magnificent brand new computer.
You know, it
So
makes
happy with it.
20 years younger, no question.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great.
I'll tell my son, he put it together for me.
Okay, Ellen Sperling, Donna, Ray, hi, Larry. Good to see you. Good to see you, Howard. Good morning. Joy. Good morning, Joy.
Good morning, Joy.
Marina. Hi, Boker Tov, Shabbat Shalom, Mara, and Anonymous. There's an empty chair over there. And Karen, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay. Baruch
Atah
Adonai
Eloheinu
Eloheinu
melech
Asher kashanu b'mitzvotav
v'tzivanu
la'asot
Divrei Torah. Amen.
All right. I'm going to do something I haven't done before. I'm going to go backwards.
Oh, okay.
Why am I going to go backwards?
Because something must be important.
Well, it's actually something that I didn't know before.
Oh, dear.
I came across it and I loved it. And so we're going to go back a week. We're going to go back to last week's Sedra.
Mm.
And I'm not going to apologize. It's just fun. According to the Torah, when Moses spoke with God, Moses had a change in physical appearance. Do you remember what that is?
No.
Horns.
Yes.
He was radiant.
Horns.
What?
He was radiant. He had a glow about him.
He had horns.
Glowing face. His face was
Well,
glowing.
he was radiant.
He had horns.
Horns.
And
Lord.
I've always enjoyed that. One of my favorite moments in life was when I visited my mother in the hospital. This had to be in the early 60s. And she was in a double room. And atypically, my mother would engage the woman in the other bed and describe her son, who was, how did my mother view it? God's gift to humanity. I mean, whatever. That was how my mother viewed me. Very humble.
How
Okay.
nice. How lovely.
So I walked into the room and my mother said to her roommate, "This is my son, the rabbinical student." I was then a rabbinical student. And the other woman, God love her, said, "Oh, would you come over here near my bed, please? It's safe. My mother's in the room. What could happen?" And I said, "Sure, but why?" "I want to see your horns."
Yeah.
She really did.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I showed her my horns. And no, all dealing with, from the beginning, Moses, when he encountered God, had carne or horns of light that would, and you see some of this in medieval art, horns of light that would be coming out of his head. And so in this passage, which exists only in the original Hebrew, but it's fun anyway, it asks the question, Moses didn't know when he was coming down from the mountain that he had these horns of light coming out of his head. Where'd they come from? The rabbis asked. Where'd they come from? And I had never read this midrash. Where did Moses get this stuff? Well, when he was writing out the Torah, there was a little bit of ink left over, and Moses scratched his head. And from the ink that was on his fingertips, the light burst forth out of Moses's head.
Wow.
I never heard this. Okay, I enjoy this stuff. Another rabbi asks, impossible. He said it like that. How could it be that ink could be left over more than was needed to write the Torah? Okay, I got this problem. Did God know how much
ink?
Was needed to write out the Torah? I had never worried about this before. So fine. The explanation is, don't you know that the name Moses is not mentioned in this week's, that's last week, this week's Torah portion? Last week's Torah portion is the only place since the beginning of Exodus through the end of the Torah where Moses' name is not mentioned. Because Moses said to God, last week, etc., I don't want anything more to deal with this people. Wipe me out, forget it. Moses was given by God enough ink to write the whole Torah, including his own name. When it was decided last week that Moses' name would not be in the Sedra, there was leftover ink. So Moses went like this. The ink on his fingertips became light.
Oh,
That's how Moses got
horns.
I just thought that you would really need that to function better in the world. Okay? There you go.
Rabbi?
Sir. Effie. Effie, did you have your hand up?
Well, I thought the extra ink was so for the commentaries in later years.
Why not? I like it. You won't hear this often. I agree with Effie. Steve?
I agree with Effie too, but my question is that the Torah, unlike, an author writing a book, wasn't written with chapters or sedras or anything else. A group of people centuries later carved it up that way and decided to do the division so that Moses's name wouldn't be in that sedra. But that doesn't seem to necessarily have been the result. It's humankind that did that.
I'm going to make a suggestion to you, Steve, with respect and with love. Don't become a serious scholar of Midrash. You're going to run into trouble with things like that. Midrash has no place for what you would call facts. Okay? So do Jewish law and stuff. It's Midrash, man. We live with it, and it's fun. It's fun. Calendar, March 12th. Can you believe it? Daylight savings time. March 22nd. Next current events class. I may be teaching that class from Mars because Earth will have been destroyed. I don't know. March 22nd, next current events. Jim Ruxin?
Hi. Nothing tonight, but next week we'll have a film and I'll announce that in an email to those who want it, probably at the beginning of the week. So give me an email at jimruxin@yahoo, and I'll, if you're not on the list, and I will send you an announcement.
Fantastic. Thank you. Cindy?
We're working on some dates with Wilshire, but right now we have happy hour on Tuesday at Rusty at 5 o'clock. And the end of the month, we have Shabbat dinner with friends at Froman's at 6. If you want to come to Froman's, you need to let Susie know so she has a seat for you. Women are invited to happy hour. Everyone is invited to Froman's.
Who's invited to happy hour?
Women,
Ladies.
those who identify as female.
Isn't that against the law?
Not for a sisterhood.
Okay.
I
Oh,
love it. I love it.
oh, right. Okay. I would really love to be sitting next door, next to the tables of the women at happy hour and just listen to the conversation.
After we have a few drinks.
Yeah.
That is, the answer is yes, precisely.
Well, you could eat dinner at a table near us.
Okay, checking in, is there anything going on in your family, in your lives? Howard?
So the first annual Wilshire Boulevard bar mitzvah, second bar mitzvah event is now scheduled for July 29th.
Oh,
There are four people, and it's Shabbat Nachamu, which is a really nice,
Woo,
and Rabbi Nanas picked that, and yeah, 4 men. There were 3 women, but they apparently got cold feet, as women so often do.
you didn't say that.
There were 4 women, but then nothing was heard from them.
Okay.
They signed up, but nothing was heard from them since, unfortunately.
this is a recorded
Aw.
program. We're gonna scrub certain comments and we're gonna be fine, but that's great. So
Yeah.
give me the number. How many people will have this bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah?
4. And the details to be worked out, but I assume we're going to invite lots of people to come. So we'll invite
Yeah.
everybody here to come. Hopefully we'll provide food. We'll see. At least 2 of the 4 seem to be retired physicians. I don't know.
That's great. That is great. Mazal tov. Okay, anyone else have anything else personal going on in their lives that we should know about? Or if you know something about somebody you want to gossip, you can bring that into.
You and Reese are getting an invitation, but I can't tell you about what yet. Not yet. You and Reese are getting an invitation.
Okay.
All right, so this is good. Let me just see if I've seen everybody here. Oh, Tufan, I had to see Tufan. I don't know who is listed under Fate Velez. So if you want to identify yourself, I would love to know. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm Jean-Louis Velez, a longtime member of Wilshire Temple. I'm really here today because it's yahrzeit of my father last week. And I read that you have a minyan and recite Kaddish.
It's certainly great to have you here. and Kaddish will be recited at 10 o'clock exactly, or 9:58 or something like that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Shalom. Good to have you with us. I see Joseph Perling. Okay, now we are going to Kitisa, which is the Sedra for this week. We are on page 587 in the Plout. Risa, you'll tell me what page we're on in the women's commentary.
Chapter and verse. Everybody can find.
Ironically.
Each
495 is Kitty's.
starts 495, correct.
Chapter and verse.
Give us where? Give us a chapter and verse.
Well, we don't know yet.
31, verse 12.
31, okay. That's-
31:12.
Verse 12. Oh, Sukasa, hi. Okay. We're gathering all of our people. What a great group. You know how wonderful you are. Stop that. Okay. And we're going to get started here. And God says to Moses, now speak to the people of Israel. Interesting phrase. Ach et shabtotai tishmoru. Speak to the Israelite people and say, nevertheless, you must keep my Sabbaths, for this is a sign between me and you throughout the ages, that you may know that I, the Eternal, have consecrated you.
Why, nevertheless?
Exactly. It makes no sense. The word ach, it's a Hebrew word, it's a real word. We know what it means. It isn't the German ach, it's the Hebrew ach. And it means, well, let's see. Speak to the Israelites, say, ach, you must keep my Sabbaths. And the rabbis say, what do you mean, nevertheless? Why? If you look at the beginning of chapter 31, you have all of the instructions beginning for the construction of the tabernacle.
Mhm.
Okay? And then it says, ach, nevertheless, keep my Sabbath. The rabbis put this together and say, God wants to make it clear. Build my sanctuary, build the tabernacle, do that now. Ach, don't violate the Sabbath. You might think, the rabbis say, you might think that it's so important that you violate the Sabbath. Not true. Don't do it. Don't do it. Do you remember what is forbidden on the Shabbat is first listed? Do you remember where? In other words, beyond saying don't work. What's work? And what's work? Risa? What?
No. Who knows what's work? That's the whole problem.
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. There are categories of work associated with the building of the tabernacle. Sewing, whatever, all the stuff that goes into it. Those are the original categories of work, which may not be done on the Sabbath. So when it says keep the Sabbath, don't work on the Sabbath, what does that mean? The first answer it means is anything that's associated with the building of the tabernacle is forbidden on the Sabbath. Shabbat is very important. We're going to go on because it's going to get challenging here. But keep my Sabbath because it is the sign between me and you forever, to know that I, God, am the one it says have consecrated you. I could also read it in the present tense. I am God who consecrates you. Don't violate the Shabbat. What's fascinating to me, of all the rules, the laws of ritual behavior, not talking about murder, but of ritual behavior, the Sabbath gets the most important weight. Why is that fascinating to me? Because outside of the very Orthodox community, the Sabbath gets very little weight. It's just a fact. By the way, I don't mean in your lives, I mean in my life. So we watched services last night, live stream. It was a little wet outside, so just like the Wicked Witch of the West, we figured we'd melt, and so we watched at home. And this morning I'm with you. But the fullness of Shabbat, I can't tell you that I observe the fullness of Shabbat. In the old days, when we had a home, a house, I loved to go out Saturday afternoon, which is when I would not have meetings and calls. Congregants would stay away. I loved to go out and garden. I did. How does that rank on the violation scale?
Well, is that
Pretty
called
high
work?
up.
Oh, that's easy.
Pretty high up.
That's not work.
No, if you do it because you enjoy it, it's not work. If you do it to sell the flowers or vegetables, it's then work.
Well, I mean, gardening, I
That's
guess.
really good. It's not correct, but it's
good.
It's good. Why not? Okay.
That's a hobby, isn't it? Gardening.
That's great. But Shabbat, so heavily emphasized in the Torah, so heavily emphasized in the rabbinic literature, so heavily pushed up until the 19th century.
How about the Ten Commandments?
It's there.
Yeah.
Says nothing about gardening. It's there. And look what's happened in the last 200 years with regard to Shabbat. I remember when I was young, creative, and courageous, I delivered a sermon which I assure you had no impact. But it was, I understand that you can't keep Shabbat 24, actually 26 hours. I understand that. What if you decided that you would keep Shabbat all Friday evening? Really keep Shabbat. Dinner and daven and sit around and not go out and do Shabbat. And I want to assure you, there isn't a single person who changed their behavior based upon my brilliant sermon. Not one. It just didn't happen. Okay, I have a sign that some people have their hands up, but I haven't seen it. Steve Miller and Mara, I found you. Okay.
Isn't there a lot of, it's really though pushing value judgment, because you can read and study on Shabbat, And a lot of people find that to be a lot of work. They don't enjoy it like you and I do. And it's really a value judgment of what we're prioritizing and decide is productive and leisurely more than anything else.
Okay, all right, Mara or whoever is in the chart.
I was actually going to pretty much say what Steve said. I struggle with on Shabbat what I should do, and it seems to me that studying is hard work. And I don't see in the passage that we are told what we should be doing. We're told what we should not be doing.
Correct.
And I think that's problematic.
I would like to praise Stanley.
By the way,
for her definition about Shabbat. She expressed the way that I am fully appreciating about this, and I have been following this procedure since I know myself.
Following what procedure, Arthur? I didn't get that.
She said if you gardening for enjoyment and not for selling, this is okay. If you are going to sell your product, this is a job that you should not do. This is a proper way to handle this situation.
That's exactly what she said.
Okay, fine. We're going to take two more comments. The Torah doesn't say what you should do. I do want to point out that the rabbis say yes, but nothing. So they make a twist on it. You should pick up material you should review, you should enjoy it. It's a way that they're saying as well, studying new material can be hard. So it's not for Shabbos. On Shabbos, pick up something that you've studied before, review it, and enjoy it. So they do make that thing. I see Howard, I see Effie. Did I forget somebody? Howard, Effie.
And Brad.
I'm sorry?
Brad also has his hand up.
Okay, Howard, Effie, Brad.
During the times when I have joined Orthodox people, Shabbat observant people, for their participate partly in their observance, one thing I really noticed from the beginning is how hard they were working, and by they I mean the women, on serving food and clearing the table. That's work. Of course, that you can say they love it. They love to do it. They're not being paid for it, but it seemed to me that it's work. And I personally, in my own work, before I retired, I enjoyed the work. I did the work not because I was being paid, although that was nice, but because I enjoyed the work. So it all seems kind of blurry to me. We need but obviously it's not blurry to the observant people, that they know that it's okay to break your back serving food or whatever you would call it. That's okay, no matter how hard you're working.
I think that's a valid statement, but then you have to, anything you do could then be regarded. I know people for whom going for a walk is hard work.
Exactly. This needs to be really reformed. This would be a great place for Reform Judaism to come in and create a new minchag of how to observe Shabbat, which it hasn't done.
Sit in bed and starve. But you're right. You're right. Effie and then Brad.
Years ago, maybe 30 years ago, we had a book that belonged to Rabbi Schwartz, a Chabad rabbi, and we wanted to return it to him on Shabbat. So Shulamit and I went and parked our car about a block and a half away, walked there, and then went in, and it was the most heartwarming thing I've ever seen. The rabbi was there reading to one of his kids. The older kids were sitting around reading, and the whole family was just there studying and acting as a family. Today, you don't see people act like a family like that. And it was very inspiring.
And I'm going to suggest to you that that's a beautiful story, and the truth of family. There's a stupid commercial for Golden Corral or something on television, and the mother's sitting there with 3 teenage girls, and she's screaming at them because the 3 of them are all on the cell phone doing whatever it was. And she says, "Why don't you talk to each other?" And I'm never going to go to Golden Corral, so the commercial has no impact on me. But do I think, because I'm old and useless, that there were beautiful things about family and friends hanging out and just talking and being together or sharing a text? Yeah. Brad. And then Maya.
Rabbi, I think to get an understanding of work, what the meaning of work is, you have to go back to the creation story. And work there seems to be associated with creating. Those days of the week when we create versus the day of the week when we don't create. And you know, there's something sacred about Shabbat, but there's also something very sacred about work, because that's when we act in God's image. And I mean, that's the basis of the Protestant ethic, the sacredness of work. And the challenge of that today is what's happening is we enter a world where work is less and less important in people's lives. Certainly us entering into retirement, but the whole population, where our sacredness largely not only has come from observing Shabbat, but from the work that we do, from the creation that we do. So that's really a challenge for us today, it seems to me, is finding sacredness, not only in Shabbat, but finding sacredness as work becomes less and less important to people.
Brad, I love it. I love it, Brad. And in some ways, Shabbat is absolutely not a day for creating. By the way, that's why they don't want you to study something new. Don't do new things. But 6 days a week, that's when, if you will, God created, but work has, I think, I don't want to go into this, but to ask ourselves, what gives meaning to Monday or Tuesday, or what gives meaning to what we're doing? And it used to be that work would give meaning. I wonder what gives meaning now in place of work, which, you know, what is this quiet quitting? Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Quiet
Exactly.
quitting, where people show up, but they're not really there. The quiet quitting, which means that the work experience is not a source of meaning. And family is not where a lot of people hang out, though some people on this forum have wonderful family experiences. I know that. But what gives meaning? And if it's not Shabbat and it's not the work week, okay, Maya, you're up.
I'm going to defend my generation a little bit here. And I'm going to do that hopefully by appealing to who I'm speaking to and saying that all of these examples that we're giving, and including this story with the tabernacle, I think when we talk about this quiet quitting stuff, we have an image of what work looks like. And I think what's really going on is individuals are taking their own definition of work and turning it into an interpersonal message. And we all have these questions of, well, some people think gardening is work. Some people think studying Torah is work. Some people think doing homework is work. And some people think building a tabernacle is work. And there's always the other side that will say, actually, it brings me the most pleasure. And it makes me the happiest because I know it and I recognize it and it feels right to me. And I could argue that we're all here on a Zoom call talking about something in the Torah because it makes sense and it feels right to us. And so I would appeal to the idea that this is a proper and appropriate way for us to be celebrating Shabbat, because it is that recognized feeling of warmth and comfort. And then when we go into our work week, we're putting ourselves back out into the community and working on behalf of other people instead of what makes most sense just for us.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're fired. Don't show up in this class again. Okay, that was great. That was great. I see, what do I see here? Joy and then Sukasa.
Thank you. So just to, I think Brad's point, and then also to Maya's point, there, and to your point, Rabbi, to figure out who gives meaning to work. When you look at the creation story, at the end of every session of working, God defined it by saying it was good. And so God was the one who was giving the meaning to what that work was by saying, this is everything I did. And at the end of it, it was good. It wasn't good because of any other reason, perhaps, other than the fact that God defined it as being good. And I think to Maya's point about work and what that looks like now, there's, at least for me, it seems to be a disconnect between the stuff that's being done and the people doing it in a way that's really disassociated. And so people are able to, like you said, quiet quit, show up and not really be there. But I think it's also a matter, to Brad's point, about sacredness, to where even when you consider the phrase a work-life balance, that sort of insinuates that your life and the work you're doing are two different things, when that's not really the case, because your work is intrinsically part of your life. So I think just structurally, there's a disconnect between living and working. And because of that, there seems to be a dissonance to where people almost feel antagonized by the idea of working, and that sacredness of putting your own meaning to it has been lost. And I think, to Maya's point, what's happening now for a lot of people is they're reclaiming what it means to invest yourself and your time and your attention. And so when we go back to what God says, it's like, I'm the one who consecrates you, so keep this day holy. I think it's a matter of saying, I'm the one who gives meaning to your life. And so on this day, honor that by giving your attention to me, sort of. And then for all the other days, you get to give your attention and your full self in your life to what you consider to be work.
Yeah. Clapping. I have to tell you, Joy, I have never, ever heard anyone question the phrase work-life balance. And you have done so wonderfully. Now, I have to think about that, which I don't like to do. Okay.
Work.
Mikasa.
I think that what the items that we're not allowed to do in the day when that was written were considered work. And I think that today, and I think that I lost my train of thought, but anyway, I think I'm going to say the olden days, turn of the century, people lived in little villages. So when it came to Shabbat, you knew everybody was home and you would just walk and visit them. And I think my perception is that people just dropped in for lunch. I mean, everybody used to go to my grandmother's house for dinner on Friday night. And I think that because of that separation, because they went there specially just to be together, I think that precluded doing any of the kind of things that were listed as the things you shouldn't do. And it encouraged people to be together and communicate. And I think that we've lost that now. And I think what was the word quitting? I forget the phrase.
Quiet quitting.
Private quitting. I think people.
Quiet quitting.
Quiet quitting. I think people today multitask. I think kids are on their phones, people are watching TV and talking. We don't really create that space for people to be 100% together and communicating. And I think that's kind of what's lost. I know we light candles and so forth and do a Mia Shebeira on Friday night. And then we sort of go back to our regular, have dinner, do the dishes, watch TV. They didn't do that in the turn of the century. There was no TV, there was no radio. So they were together and they created a sense of community. And I think that's something that we've kind of all lost.
I have never had this conversation with a group before. Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to move on, but I have Rebecca and Howard.
I just want to say that this goes with some of the other things that have already been said, but when people are working, that is their identity. Without working, what is their identity? And I think that it's very difficult to just completely take a rest because then you're not in your identity mode of your work occupation. And it's very difficult, I think, for people to say, I am more than my job, or that my job is me. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. There was a survey reported in the New York Times this week talking to professionals who've retired, lawyers, doctors, whatever. What do you most miss? And it wasn't applying the law or healing a patient. It was being in the presence of the folks in the office or in the operating room or wherever. It was the community that was sharing in this, and that was rich. That they miss when they're no longer in the office, in the hospital, in wherever. Yes. Howard, last point.
I think that for the Jewish community, or let's just say that not going back so far as to ancient times, but going back or to the first half of the 20th century, the experience was once you got off the boat, at least if you're in Cleveland, Ohio, Saturday, you have to work. There's no doubt about it. There were some people that didn't work, but most to be a Jew who got off the boat and was becoming an American, no matter how observant you were, as a matter of course, before you got on the boat. Now you have to work on Saturday. It was the biggest day. Everyone who had a business, that was the biggest day. So I'm really talking about businessmen. And I think it's kind of sad that that happened.
Thank you. It brought up memories, which, yeah, thank you, especially Cleveland and my father.
Yeah.
If the store had not been open on Saturday, he
wouldn't have eaten.
Delicatessen, the restaurant, would have lost a huge chunk of business.
Right.
Not a question. Okay, wow. Okay. We're going to go on. This is so good. And there's no time. I think it's wonderful. Speak to them, say that keep the Sabbath. It's a sign between me, wherever. I am God who sanctifies you. Verse 14, you shall keep the Sabbath because it is holy
for you.
For you. One who profanes it shall be put to death. Whoever does work on it will be cut off. Now, this is complicated. It looks simple. It ain't. The Hebrew for profane, should I turn to Donna and ask her? We're going to deal with the Hebrew. Mechalaleha mot yumat. Those who profane the Sabbath have to be killed. The rabbis make an interesting play on the word mechalel, which is to profane. The root of the word mechalel is chol. Chol. In Hebrew, chol has several meanings, one of which is a non-holy day, a regular day of the week. So profaning, some of the rabbis say, isn't just doing a forbidden work. If you live Shabbat like it is any other day of the week, that's the violation. There's a lot there. I like that. And it derives as a possibility from the Hebrew. It's holy. Mechalaleha, whoever, in this translation, whoever treats the Shabbat as an ordinary day of the week, mot yumat. You have to kill everyone who does any kind of work. V'nichrata. Folks, this is a different thing. When someone is about to kill somebody else, and then I don't need an excuse to garden Sukasa. I just need a garden. Here's the story. A person is known to be in a one-room cabin, and everyone has seen it. That person is in a one-room cabin. And people form a circle holding hands around the cabin. A person approaches that circle holding a knife, gets through the holding hands, goes to the cabin, and a minute later, the person in the cabin is dead. Is the person who brought the knife in and went into the cabin liable for capital punishment. Capital punishment, you know, was permitted in the Torah.
Witnesses.
A, witnesses, no one saw it. And the second part is warning. If the person isn't warned as he passes through that circle, you go, you kill, you're going to be killed. If the person isn't warned, you cannot apply capital punishment. Now let's go to our verse.
How do we know the dead guy didn't warn him?
I am moving forward like that. Now, the first part of the verse says, if you treat the Shabbat like an ordinary day of the week, mot yumat, you got to die. But then why does it repeat anyone who does any form of work on it, and that person will be cut off? Isn't that the same thing? No. Being cut off is a death, usually premature, applied only by God. And the rabbis say what's going on here, it's not a repetition.
The floor is completely dry, okay?
Anyone who does any work on it, the nichrata, God will punish that person with a premature death, means failure to warn. No one can be punished severely if prior to doing the act, the person isn't warned. So you have two things. One is the fully informed person violates the Shabbat, that person you got to kill. But if the person is not warned and violates the Shabbat, you cannot apply capital punishment, but that person will be punished by God with a premature death. That's what this verse is all about.
Does general teaching of the law constitute warning?
I didn't hear, I'm sorry.
Does general teaching of these laws that they all grew up with constitute warning? They should
No.
know that.
No. It's like with the murder example. No. Immediately prior to the violation, inform them they are violating. The only reason I went into this is to bring back how seriously the law of Shabbat violation was treated. You do it knowing that it's wrong, informed that it was wrong, you have to be put to death. If you do it and were not immediately prior warned, God is going to make you die young. Howard, and then I want to run. There's so much more in this I want to do, Howard.
Just quickly, does mot yumat, does that mean they shall be put to death, or does it mean they shall die?
Put to death.
Put to death.
No, you shall die, if you will, is the other one. God is going to make you die prematurely. But the Sabbath violator is to be killed. That's clear. Quick, Mara, quick, Effie, and quick, Sukasa, and we got to run. Quick.
Mine's not quick, so I'll just defer.
Oh, give me a hint.
Oh, I was trying to figure out all the times in the Torah prior to this passage that that in essence God put people death and trying to figure out if there were actually warnings.
Okay, nichrata means premature death at the hand of God. That's what it means. Okay, I just quickie, Effie.
Yes. Years ago, I used to go to work on Saturday. And I always told myself it was okay because I never got paid for Saturday, so I wasn't paid. And then one day I was driving on a Saturday and I just said, well, if I'm not getting paid, it's still work. And so I just got off the freeway, went home, and I never worked on Saturday again.
Wow. Good for you.
Yeah. That's quite a story, Effie. Sue Casa.
Just quickly, my father was a physician, and he always said that when he had Orthodox patients, that it was okay to violate the Shabbat to preserve life, because that's even more important than Shabbat.
It is such that I know of Orthodox doctors who will not themselves answer the phone. Someone will answer, a maid, whatever, will answer for them. If it becomes a matter of life and death, they go. And that absolutely isn't.
And also the patient, it's the same for the patient. That to preserve life is the most important thing.
Absolutely. Reese, quick.
My husband always worked on Shabbat, and all the rabbis do.
I never thought about that.
Oh, I think about that all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Risa, you know that Shabbat morning with this group, I'm having fun.
Yes, I know you're having fun, but by all the definitions that we've started with work, and if you remember at the very beginning of this class, my little question was, what's work? And
Okay.
that's what this is all about.
I just want to point out as we move on to Kaddish, and yeah, the Hatzalah ambulance, Ray, absolutely. But as we move on to Kaddish, would you please look at verse 16 and 17? V'shamru v'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'doratam b'rit olam. This is where it's from.
Right.
Okay, so what we were reading and didn't get finished is the lead up to the V'shamru. Fun? Yes, definitely fun.
That's good.
We move now to Kaddish. And thank you to those people who, even though they don't have Shabbat, Kaddish, stay with us so that we can have a minyan. Thank you for that. Those who have passed away during the past month.
Honey, I'm on mute.
Camille Adar, Sylvia Bialik, Virginia Bulikian, Sam Davis, Judith Susan Bell, Celia Goldman, Albert Greenfield, Sharon Levy Jaffe, Lois Melvoin, Joel Ostro, Arnold Palmer, Clara Stovitz, Richard Sutkin, Joan Vogel. And the following, the anniversaries have occurred during, the anniversary of their passing occurred during the past week. Pauline Edelman, Dorothy Adlin, Mordo Ben Altabet, Rosalie Appel, Constant Austin, Jack Becker, Charmaine Blatt, Galt Booth, Byron Brandt, John Brennan, Gretchen Brown, Helen Brownlee, Harriet Burton, Albert Calderon, Jack Chinsky, Sylvia Sam Chortik, Francis Cohn, Nancy Colton, Hillary Toodletaub Costin, Louise Cox, Robert Doyle, Merle Cannon, Menashe Eliachar, Ann Epstein, Inez Eskowitz, Frank Feder, Robert Feldman, Alan Elliott Firestein, Seymour Finkelstein. Minnie Fisher, Louis Fisher, Sonia Friedman, Gerald Friedman, Harold Getz, Rosalie June Goldinger, Mickey Goldman, Charles Goodman, Helen Gould, Bernard Gross, Russell Grossman, David Hahn, Muriel Haas, Elliot Hechtman, Lena Hockman, Sarah Dell Holtmark, Louis Isaacson, Shifra Karkomi, Aaron Carmen, Morton K, Coco Konar, Monty Albert Lauder, Lois Jean Levy, Alfred Freddie Lisbon, Timothy Magnan, Yigal Makeover, Lillian Mark, Ruth Matson, Jerry Meyerson, Jala Meshkanian, Kathy Feinstein Molliver, Naima Naim, Shirley Oakham, David Osgood, Irvin Part, Peggy Penchiner, Claire Persky, William Pollip, Dennis Price, Arlene Price, Sklarski, Abe Polger, Diane Gay Ratner, Candace Rogers, Kelly Romick, Ann Bessie Rosen, Molly Rosenbaum, Lily Rossman, Gideon Rossner, Patty Ross, Aaron Roth, Jacob Rubin, John Rubin, Marcel Risenberg, Joseph Sauer, Mark Lloyd Savan, Shirley Schulman, Jane Scheiberd, Lillian Schmidt, Albert Serlin, Nathan Chappelle, Joseph Silverstein, Daisy Seneko, Sarah Slan, Michael Smukler, Ruth Sonas, Viva Sprague, Regina Tariki, Louis Trentalis, Donald Van, Robert Valaise, Saul Wegg, Anna Weissman, Yale White, Maurice Wilczyk, Libby Wolf, Robert Yablans, Pearl Yeager, Nathan Zipperman, Harold Zlotnick. May I mention as well the name of Topol,
Yes,
who passed away,
yes, he did.
and we remember him with gratitude and love as well. We now join together, first of all, mentioning all those who died in defense of the United States, those
Yes.
who died in defense of the state of Israel,
Yes,
those who died through acts of senseless violence, those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. I apologize for names I mispronounced. If you have other names to mention them now. We join together in Kaddish. Yitgadal, Kadash, Shemei Rabbah. Shemay the Kudish
Amen.
Amen. May God, who makes peace in the high places, make peace in our hearts, make peace in our homes, Make peace in the household of Israel. Make peace among all the families and nations of earth.
Let us say
And let us say, Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Have a wonderful Shabbat, everybody. Thank you for today. It was glorious. Thank you very much. God willing, see you next week. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Faithful
Shabbat
aid.
shalom,
Thank you for
everybody.
being with us.
Shabbat shalom, Joy.
Hi,
Shabbat
Susie.
shalom.
Hi, Joy.
Hey, Effie.
Stop talking already. Okay. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
I bring
shalom.
it.
Shabbat
Have a
shalom.
beautiful rest of Shabbat. So darn sweet. So why can't I leave the meeting? Why can't I leave the meeting? Leave me.